All right, well, welcome back to the Leadership Puzzle. Today, we're talking about game-changing approaches to innovation with Marcelo Calbucci. He is an entrepreneur, an investor, a former Amazon and Microsoft leader. Uh, Marcelo took one of Amazon's most powerful internal tools, the PR FAQ framework, and he adapted it for leaders everywhere. His book, The PR FAQ Framework, breaks down how structured writing can shape and sharpen decision making, drive alignment, and turn big ideas into reality. So if you've ever struggled getting buy-in, getting alignment with your team, or just clearly communicating your vision, this episode is critical for you to listen to. So, Marcelo, welcome to the Leadership Puzzle.
Thank you for having me, Jeff. And you did such a superb job summarizing everything. I don't know what else there is to talk about it.
Oh, we're done. Nice. Oh, all right. Well, I want to dive right into your book because when we first talked about this, I was like, I knew Amazon had a unique model, but I had no idea. So you actually believe so much in this PR FAQ model that you wrote a whole book about it, and now you're evangelizing it to everyone. What inspired you to write this book?
Yeah, so I did 18 years of startups, right? So I built many startups, founded many startups, worked on startup studios, and then I joined Amazon, which is the opposite of a startup. Like it's a massive organization, right? Global, 60 countries, nearly 2 million employees. And as soon as I joined Amazon, I was exposed to PRFAQ and what it could do. And the first few times that you see it and use it, you feel like it's awkward, but then you realize, wow, this is really powerful. And then a few weeks later or a few months later, you start to notice like, wait a second, this could really be used by founders, entrepreneurs,
Mm.
innovators everywhere. Why aren't more people using it? So through my journey at Amazon, I've been collecting this thought. And when I left Amazon, I was like, I need to tell the world about this. Let's make sure that more people can use this to make their own strategic and vision decisions for whatever they are doing, a new business program, product, service, whatever they have in mind.
Hmm. Oh, interesting. My whole career uh, has been PowerPoint dominated. I mean, I think in terms of PowerPoints on how to tell my story. Um, but what was it? Was there a particular moment that the light bulb hit in Amazon? You said, "Oh, this is so powerful." Can you kind of describe that moment when the light bulb really went off for you?
Yeah, there was. It was maybe week number 3 or week number 4 when I joined Amazon. And the way Amazon does is it's not only the PRFQ, there is many frameworks within Amazon, but mostly every meeting at Amazon starts with a document. Sometimes it's a one pager, sometimes it's a six pager. The PRFQ is a six pager, and there are multiple formats there. And everyone starts the meeting reading the document in silence,
Oh,
right?
really?
So if it
Not
is a
not not a
six,
pre-read, but
not a
in
pre-read, not a pre-read.
interesting.
You,
Okay.
if it is a meeting in person, you are sitting in a room in silence for 20 minutes for everyone to read that six-page document. If it is a Zoom meeting, everyone turns off their camera and reads the document offline, and then they turn on their camera to start the conversation. And the
Wow.
difference here is night and day on the quality of the discussions, right?
Oh,
Because
wow.
everyone is starting from the same point. It's not like you start a discussion and this person asks a question that is like, we already talked about this in the last meeting and the person forgot or wasn't present. It doesn't matter. Everyone starts from the same point when you start from written document. So I felt that was very powerful. And the PRFAQ is the format that Amazon uses for future thinking, like what we're going to do next, right? On the next 12 months or a year or 2 years, whatever they may be. And it's really focused on vision and strategy. So it's not a planning document. It's not like a roadmap, detail, tactical, or execution document. It's
Okay.
really vision, strategy, a high level, right? Let's debate, discover, decide, and then go for it.
Got it. And then, so one of the key principles, and you kind of touched on this, is starting from the end, right? So when we had the conversation in your book, you talk about how you're actually thinking about what does it look like, and if I remember this correctly, PR is like press release, FAQ is frequently asked questions, which most people are familiar with in a different kind of context. So, can you explain how this mind shift, where using this PRFAQ document helps improve the strategic thinking for leaders?
Yeah, so this system is called working backwards, right?
Okay.
So what you're doing is you're starting from the outcome that you want
All right.
and then working backwards to define the vision and strategy to get to that outcome. So the press release, which is the first part of the PRFAQ, is really a press release you're not going to send to the press, but for the team to paint a picture of like, where do we want to go? And you write your press release as if what you want to do already has happened,
Hmm.
right?
Well,
So
that's
it's like,
great.
today
Yeah.
we are launching this product, and here's a quote from a customer, and here's the problem you're solving, and here's the solution, but you haven't done anything yet. You're just painting a vision of the future. So people can discuss, discover what's missing, and then decide if that's the right vision or not, right? That's the right opportunity to pursue or not. So that's what it means working backwards. And in the book, I talk quite a bit about outcome discovery, right? Because there is multiple outcomes that sometimes are not aligned with each other, and there's a little bit
Sure.
of friction, right? So there is the business outcome, what you want for your own business, but there is the customer outcome. How do you solve a problem for the customer that is important to them? And you have
Yeah.
to balance these two, otherwise you don't have a viable business product or whatever you're doing.
Right. Right. Now, would you use this model with a customer, or is this really just a benefit, from an internal perspective to either, if you're an entrepreneur, getting your mindset right, or with a team, getting everybody aligned to what that end goal looks like?
Yeah, it's an internal confidential document. You can
Got
include
it.
a lot of details about the business, right?
Yeah.
So you can think about the old business plan or like a product requirement document or whatever internal tools you use to capture, complex decision about the business. This is the same thing. It's
Got it.
internal, it's confidential. However, you need information from the customer. You need data from the customer about their real problem. You need to interview customers. This is just like good practice for innovation, right? The PRFAQ doesn't dictate that, but it points out if you're missing it,
Hmm.
right? As you create your PRFAQ, you're going to realize, oh, wait a second, I need to go and do some more research about the customer, the problem, the solution, feasibility, viability, whatever it need be before you can finish your PRFAQ.
Yeah, yeah. Now, is this it? Is the PRFAQ a really good framework uh, for product, or is it service? I mean, where does this framework really lend itself to an ideal tool for leaders to use?
It's for when you are creating something new or changing something that already exists.
Okay.
And something is very generic here. It can be a business, a product, a service, a program, a process, and even a policy within an organization,
Hmm.
right? So you can use the PRFAQ on all those use cases. And
Okay.
Amazon uses it widely. Like every team at Amazon is writing multiple PRFAQs a year and making multiple decisions. And there are thousands of teams at Amazon. So
Yeah.
as you can imagine, Amazon as a company is generating 10,000 PRFAQs a year.
Got it. Okay. Um, so then, just so that the audience can kind of understand this whole flow, so you have an idea, you want to do something new or change something. You start with this PRFAQ. Once everybody gets aligned on it, then what happens after? I mean, in Amazon? Is it still all written, just slightly different versions of PRFAQ in different forms, or what does that look like?
Yeah, it's a decision tool. right? So what you're doing with a PRFAQ is using it to inform the leadership and the team and the stakeholders if this is a good opportunity or not a good opportunity. So because of that, a lot of PRFAQ leads to nothing. And by nothing, it means like you're not going to put the resources or effort or funding towards that. You
Sure.
learn that the opportunity wasn't right, the timing wasn't right, the value wasn't right, the customer didn't have that problem, whatever it is that you learned. So that's great, right?
Yeah.
So you
Yeah.
didn't waste a year of time and
Yeah.
$1 million on something that like just to realize it won't work.
Right.
But sometimes it works, right? Meaning like you get to the end of the PRFQ process, which can be a few weeks, and you realize, yes, this is a great opportunity. We should pursue it. We should fund it. We should invest in it, and we go chase it. And it can work for a team of one, like you're a small business owner and just you doing this and writing the PRFQ to help you think through the problem, learn how to articulate, do the discovery, understand your gaps in your thinking. But it's even more valuable when you have a team of people that need alignment and need to contribute from different angles to make sure that you're covering all the bases on this, opportunity.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned that a lot of times organizations struggle with innovation because it gets lost in bureaucracy, lack of internal buy-in and whatnot. How do you think that the PRFAQ framework can help leaders gain that support necessary to drive their initiatives forward? Because it's a different model, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm used to, a strategy on a page, one page, and if I can get all the information that I need on one page that the CEO or whoever can look at and go, oh, I know what you're trying to do. But it's just a different way of reframing it. So
Yeah,
how does
I'm
this
not
help?
gonna. Yeah, I'm not gonna oversell the PRFAQ. I'm not gonna say like if you adopt the framework, like all innovation problems in your organization are gone. That's not gonna happen, right? So the difference here is the PRFAQ is by design, the way it's created involves lots of people, including the leadership in contributing
Hmm.
to define the vision and the strategy. So what's very common in some organizations, Jeff, is that leadership is isolated and they are the people below the leadership are trying to sell them ideas, right? The PRFQ is not like that. You're not trying to sell anyone
Okay.
anything. You're not going to a room and coming out with the perfect strategy and saying, here, approve this. It's more like a pull mechanism,
Oh,
like you
okay.
involving not only your team, but the leadership, the stakeholders, and the other people, the other parts of the organization, marketing, sales, product, customer service, that are gonna be involved on that so they can provide a level of feedback on the strategy. And because the PRFQ is high level, you're not going to talk about the details, the technical details and the implementation and the dates and the name of the people that are going to work on the project, right? You're really talking about, is this worth doing or not for us? Is the purpose right? Do everyone understand the why? And do we have clarity on the strategy, which is a series of choices that you're going to make to ensure that this innovation is on the right track.
Yeah. So in this document, in this framework, would I know, when I would try to come up with some new idea, I always wanted to make sure there's ROI to it. So
Yes.
where would which a lot of companies, if it doesn't have an ROI, you don't do it unless there's
Yeah.
a legal or statutory reason. But where in the context of your framework does ROI get discussed, or does it? Is it after the fact?
No, it does. It's part of the framework, right? So let's talk a little bit about the document, right? The document is one portion of it. How you use the document is the other portion. So the document itself is 6 pages long. The first page is the press release, like I mentioned. Then you have 5 pages of frequently asked questions.
Okay.
But one of those pages is the customer FAQs. So you're going to write FAQs as if the product was already here and the customer is asking the question. For example,
Okay.
the customer might ask like, how much does it cost? How do I import my data? When can I start using it? Am I eligible to use this? So these are like customer level FAQs. And then you have 4 pages of internal FAQs. And the internal FAQs talk about the viability, the feasibility, and the value of what you're proposing. Part of the viability questions is answering, is this worth doing it? Should we
Okay.
do it? Not can we do it, but should we do it?
Should we?
Right? And like you're going to include elements of like how much this is going to cost, how long it's going to take, what kind of resources do I need, data, team, funding, whatever that is, might be even physical resources that you might need to do that. And also elements of the scope of this project, right? Like what we are doing and what we're not doing. So that comes in the form of FAQs.
Okay.
So
Got
you
it.
put that on the internal FAQ, and then people read that entire document, and they have a good understanding of what's being proposed, what is the problem that we're solving, who is the customer, what's the solution, how are the customers going to find the solution, how does it compare with how customers are using it today, what is the impact for our business, how we're going to measure success. All those elements are included somewhere in the PR FAQ.
And that seems like a lot of information for 6 pages. I mean, is it like 8 point font?
It's not. It's very prescriptive on how you format the document, so and how you write the document, and it's the perfect combination of data and story, right? You don't want to make it just about data. It's not just like a modeling exercise. It's not just story with language that feel elaborate and very like marketing advertising. It's the right combo that you empathize with the customer and with the need, but also you have the data to back it up.
Interesting. So if you mentioned that it could take a few weeks to kind of get through all of this. So you have your first meeting. Uh, you haven't pre-staffed anybody. You haven't said, "Hey, Joe, I've got this great idea. I want you to help me out here." Instead, you give the full PR FAQ, or is it really the 1 page PR that you start with and let people start having the conversation?
Yeah, so the PR is the last part that you write. You start by writing the
Oh,
FAQs.
okay.
And there is a specific order to write the FAQs as well. You start with the FAQs that are based on fact. For example, the customer problem is a fact. You need to present it not based on assumptions or opinions, but based on data. Like we
Okay.
know there are this many customers, they have this problem. Here's the impact that they have. Here's how they're solving. So you do your discovery around that.
Okay.
Then you have the FAQs around opinions, hypotheses, assumptions, which is how we're going to solve this problem, when we're going to solve it, what we need to solve it. You don't know if that's true yet. You need to build it
Right.
to know that. So you establishing that as a part of the FAQs that are not really fact-based. But what you do is the question that you ask is like, how do you go about creating one of this, right? And
Yeah.
usually start from the spark of an idea. Someone has an idea, and like someone says like, yeah, I'll write a PRFAQ for this. So this person writes a PRFAQ. They pull information from other parts of the organization,
Okay.
so they can incorporate into the draft version of the document. And then they have a series of review sessions. It can be by function, by team, whatever makes sense for your organization. And they have a review session with a group of people, which is like an hour and a half meeting. And people provide feedback. Then the owner of the PRFAQ incorporate that feedback and go to the next team and does the same thing. So the process that takes 2 weeks usually is because you're doing multiple reviews with 5, 6,
Got it.
7
Okay.
different groups of people until you build the conviction to say like, we need to make a decision about this, right?
Got it.
Is this a go or is this a no-go? So then you would have your final meeting with the leadership or whomever is in charge of giving the stamp of approval on this project.
Got it.
And it could be that like we're not going to do it. It could be that the opportunity is right, but not right now. Or it could be like, yeah, let's go for it.
Interesting. So, so this is interesting. So you're managing all of the potential stakeholders that might be impacted here, and you're getting their input up front. And in your experience, did you find that there were individuals who really didn't want to change, or with this process, everyone was kind of open because they realized, the chance of it, succeeding or failing is not going to be anything but based on, kind of the aggregate information and input. Just trying to understand how to
Yeah.
manage that stakeholders across
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
initial
You're
project.
still gonna have your detractors, right? The people
Okay.
that don't want something to happen, the one that change, or they feel they should be the one, doing that, not you, whatever. That still exists. The
Okay.
difference is the PRFAQ, different from like a pitch deck or a sales deck or other types of documents where you present and you're trying to get buy-in. The PRFAQ is a pull mechanism. You're getting
Yeah.
people to contribute to make it happen, right? So instead of going to someone and saying like, what do you think about this? Do you love it? Do you approve it? It's more like, help me make this better. Let's
Yeah.
find the truth about this opportunity together,
Yeah.
right? So there is a little bit less resistance from the detractors
Yeah.
that you
Okay.
find in the other model.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. And I imagine that if you find someone that is passionate about it, then they'll actually become advocates for it, and as you move along, as you're pulling that
Yeah,
information from people.
most of the time what you see is people getting really excited about it, like contributing. So you have also to be the person that goes like, wait a second, let's be honest about this. Is this right? Is this real opportunity? Is this number correct? Let's not paint a too rosy of a picture here, because we want the truth,
Yeah.
not a version of the truth that gets the project approved but then the project fails.
Yeah. I think you emphasize in the book being truth seekers as a core principle.
Correct. And you have to fight the fallacies of confirmation bias, group thinking, the curse of knowledge, and everything else that our brains like activate to say like, oh, I want to do this so badly that I want all those things to be true. But if they're not true, like it doesn't matter. Physics is physics, right? Like you
Yeah.
can't change the laws of the market or the physics or whatever you're going to try to do.
So it's interesting. I'd love to hear your thoughts on what you think some of those natural barriers are that prevent leaders from seeking the truth. I mean, you hit on a couple of the biases and whatnot,
Yeah.
but in practice, as you've lived the using this framework, how does that help break down some of those biases and other things that might prevent leaders from seeking the truth?
Yeah, I think the number one is really like hungry people want to do things. They
Hmm.
want to execute, right? They don't want to talk about it. They don't want to write about it. They don't want to think about it. They just want to do it. Let's go and like see what happens, right?
Yeah.
And to use the PRFQ effectively, you need to pause. You need to think
Hmm.
critically for a minute, learn how to articulate idea, identify some of the gaps on your knowledge, even though those might be uncomfortable,
Yeah.
right? So that's part of the process.
Yeah.
That's number one. Number two is often new ideas come from solutions,
Hmm.
and they not necessarily have a problem that back them up. Right? People go like, "Oh, I have an idea for a new product, a new podcast, a new service, a new program that we need to launch. It's going to be amazing." But like, have you validated the problem actually exists? The customers care about the problem. The customers don't have how to solve that problem today. So like the
Yeah.
PRFQ pauses you and like ask those questions and like you have to fill those gaps.
Yeah.
And people sometimes avoid that because they don't want the truth, right? They feel like, oh,
Yeah.
if I do this research, I'm going to learn that the problem wasn't that big, and then I'm not going to do the fun thing that I want to do.
Yeah, that's funny because we could want to go do something that is in that if we build it they will come kind of model, right? So it's like, but this kind of helps cut through some of those just passion projects that may not really be solving something that anybody cares about except the person.
And the interesting thing, Jeff, is that sometimes you start from an idea, but that idea morphs into something better,
Hmm.
right? Because you did that discovery, because you asked those hard questions, and you found something that is even bigger
Yeah.
without spending a year, chasing a baseball stadium that no one is going to come.
Right. Right. Well, I can see how, I mean, Amazon clearly has been wildly successful using this. But you also advocate to use the PRFAQ framework uh, when, you're even an entrepreneur and you're trying to, set up a new kind of product line or initiative or whatever that might look like. Um, how does that translate from kind of a large company? But I do have a
Hmm.
lot of listeners that are in that startup entrepreneurial world. How would they really benefit from it when you may not have every type of function and discipline at your
Yeah.
fingertips, but yourself and maybe your cousin and friend down the street.
Yeah, I'll give you the extreme example of this. I wrote a PRFQ for my own book,
Okay.
right? And I look at the book as a product that I would put in the market and say, like, yeah, I'm trying to solve a problem for someone. On this case, the idea started from, startup founders are my customer. And the problem that they have is they don't know how to talk about strategy and vision and articulate it or write about it. So I was like, that's my customer. So I wrote a PRFAQ, and in the process of writing that PRFAQ, I started to realize, oh, there was not that many startup founders out there. Like if you start from a very small market already, that's going to be hard. And there's like, who else could benefit from a PRFQ? I was
Hmm.
like, well, product leaders in organizations would benefit from this. And then I started expanding. I was like, like scientists and researchers also benefit from this because they have to tell stories when they request grants from the
Right.
government or
Yeah.
foundations. I was
Yeah.
like, they need to learn how to articulate. So when I started to take a step back on my own PRFQ, I realized, oh, I'm really talking about innovators. Like anyone that's going to create something or change something are the people that could benefit from a PRFQ. So then I continued to write my PRFQ to a point where I felt like I have clarity on who's this book for, what problem I'm trying to solve, and what is the solution that I'm proposing. So that's a very extreme, like non-tech based approach to
Yeah.
using a PRFQ,
Yeah.
right? But if you're also a startup founder and you have like 2 people on your team or 5 people on your team, you still can use that to leverage the other people in your organization to provide some feedback and
Okay.
to evolve it into a more clear story. And even if you have 5 people, you want to make sure that everyone is going in the same direction, right? So
Sure.
sometimes just verbally communicating things is not enough because people might interpret slightly different.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. I will admit that when I first heard about this, I was like, wow, I'm kind of a startup as well. Well, not kind of, I am a startup as well, and moving quickly, and the idea of sitting down and writing this 6-page document felt impractical to me.
Hmm.
Um, uh, how would you respond to a leader or an entrepreneur or a founder uh, when they don't think that they have time or this might seem impractical? How would you sit down and coach them and say, well, you know what, maybe there's a better way to do it.
The important thing to remember is that when you're writing, you're activating different parts of your brain. And this
Mm,
has been studied by science, right? So your writing becomes part of thinking critically as you write.
interesting.
So here is an example of this, right? So if you're writing a paragraph about a business opportunity, and this paragraph is not coherent, it's somewhat disconnected, like your own writing is going to prove to you that there is something wrong here.
Sure.
So forces you to pause and say, like, wait a second, I wrote this, but I don't like it. I don't know why I don't like it. It's making me anxious. And so you go and you try to refine it and you realize, oh, there is some gap on my knowledge, or the story is not connecting. So you end up like thinking, not out loud, but thinking through writing,
Yeah.
right? And that helps develop the story into a much better story that is coherent and more likely to succeed.
Yeah. Now, what would you say to the person that wants to cut the corners and go, oh, I'm just going to put like two sentences of my idea into ChatGPT and let it spit out the PR FAQ for me.
What I would say is then you're asking ChatGPT to do the thinking. You're
Hmm.
not doing the thinking. You're not activating the critical thinking on your brain, right? You have to be very careful how you use AI in that context. I think AI is great to do research, to help you brainstorm things and, find things for you. It's also really good at providing feedback on your own writing. So you can paste a paragraph of text on AI and say like, critique this for me or tell me what am I missing here.
Yeah.
It's really good at that. But if you want to do the thinking, you have to do the writing.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. And I think that's where a lot of people struggle to slow down long enough to actually do the thinking and putting it down on paper.
Yeah, it's not comfortable. It's not comfortable on purpose, by design, right? You want your brain to be activated, and a lot of times that doesn't feel like the most easy thing to do, but
Yeah.
it is part of the process.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's really quite interesting because um uh I know when I sit down, I write a lot of content and um, I've hired some social media help, and they're like, oh, but I can do the blog for you. I'm like, well, no, I wanna do that because it helps me think through the different topics that I want to get out there, and so but I hadn't connected to the point that when you're writing something down, you're thinking to see if you actually have all the salient points of whatever you're trying to talk about. So that's a really fascinating way to do it, um,
Yes.
as opposed to
Yeah,
a PowerPoint where okay, I can just put my five bullets down and I'm good.
that's right. PowerPoint is so easy to create incoherent stories and then try to say, like, well, when I'm presenting, I'm going to fill in the gaps, right? And that usually doesn't stand the test of, scrutiny from a more senior leader or someone that is more expert. And then you're going to make up the story as you go, and like it becomes very convoluted.
Yeah, interesting. Um, okay, well, that this is super interesting. I'd like to shift gears a little bit because you have such an impressive career, not only spanning Amazon but also Microsoft as well as some startups. You started your career in Brazil and you made a successful career in the U.S. I'd love to hear a little bit about your journey, share a little bit about your journey and some of the leadership lessons that you've taken away so that I mean, it takes a lot of guts to say I'm gonna go all in on this book and helping evangelize this framework to people.
Yeah, for me, my career really started when I was a teenager and I fell in love with computers. Right? This was the 80s, and my father gave me a computer, and I fell in love with the idea of creating software to help people. So I went to computer science university, and then shortly after that, Microsoft hired me, and I moved to the US. So that's how I end up in Seattle and working in big tech. Then I left Microsoft and did 18 years of startups, which I really enjoy very much because it's such a fast-paced environment, a lot of innovation. And one of the biggest lessons that I would give or tell folks about leadership is really to understand human behavior and people better than anything else, right? Like interpersonal skills, communication skills are so important to be an effective leader. In the book I talk about it, like if you have a great idea but you don't know how to communicate that to people, like you don't have a great idea,
Yeah.
right? You have
Yeah.
something just on your head. Unless you can get out there and get people around to understand and rally to execute on that, you have nothing really, right? Because it's all on the execution. So understanding communication, interpersonal relations, behavior science, super important for leadership.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. That's that will resonate with the audience. I know a lot of people that want to write a book. What did you find the biggest challenge as you embarked on this journey to say, oh yeah, I need to write a book about this framework? What was the biggest challenge, and maybe what did you learn over that journey about yourself that you could share with the audience that might want to start their own book?
What I learned is that the editing and revision of a book take much longer than writing the first manuscript. It takes about 4 times longer. So if it's going to take you 3 months to write a book, it might take you 12 months of editing and revisions. And this is a very long process. I didn't realize how long it would take. And each new batch of revision that you're going to do, sometimes it takes 2, 3, 4 weeks to do
Yeah.
that, right? And getting feedback from folks also take a long time. So that's what was unexpected for me. Um, I thought that it was going to take longer to write the first version of the manuscript, but I sat down and I wrote in 3 weeks.
3 weeks.
So that was quite fast for me. I didn't know I could write that fast. It was surprising, delightfully surprising. But the editing like took so long that I also didn't expect that.
Some editors will say, yeah, a book should be about a third of what the author originally writes. Um, Too often, many authors will write something that's, 2, 3 times longer than it really needs to be. And so the
Yeah.
editor's job is, okay, we're going to cut it in half and then we'll cut it again by a fourth or whatever. And I know my first book that happened. I think I wrote 400 pages and it ended up being like 130 or something.
Yes, absolutely. I had that in mind. I've been writing blog posts and articles for a long time, so
Mm,
I was careful not to overwrite, as you said. And I did cut quite a few things, particularly paragraphs and sections that I felt like this is not clear enough.
mm,
And I want to make a book that is easy to read.
yeah,
And in my mind, I was like, to make this clear, I would have to make this an entire chapter. I don't want to make this a chapter. So just remove this. Like,
yeah,
it's okay. There is, some lessons that I'm not going to give on this book.
yeah. Now, one of the questions people ask me, as someone who has had the opportunity to write a book, what was that process to creating, well, frankly, a framework in terms of what was going to go in the book to begin with, and I know what my first book, I was like, oh, I'm just going to write blog posts, and then
Mm,
after so many blogs, I'll see if I have a consistent storyline. And so I picked and chose, different blogs and like, okay, this feels like this could be the book that I need to write. How did you, I mean, so you knew you wanted to write about PRFAQ. How did you go about figuring out, at least initially, that starting point?
So for me, it was slightly different than that. And I know authors who did exactly what you just described. But
Mm,
for me, was PRFAQ is about writing. So it's a little bit of a meta book. I had to study how to teach people how to write well.
uh,
So I spent about 2 months reading about writing, reading about critical thinking, articulation of ideas, how to tell stories, but also reading about vision, strategy, business strategy, product strategy, innovation, all those aspects. And what I did was collecting thousands of notes.
mm,
So I made like bullet points. I had a pad with me at all times that I walk around with it. Every time I had an idea or I read something interesting, I would put on the pad. Then at night, I would convert that into a online document, a digital document for myself that I would organize. And when I started to write the book, what I did is I look at my notes and I organize them in themes.
Uh,
And like, what are the themes that I'm finding? For example, cognitive biases and fallacies was a theme. Like, I want to talk about this. I think this is important. This is going to prevent you from writing well if you don't have clarity about this problem. So I grouped that all those items. Then I created an outline for the book. And
got it.
then I hated my outline and I created a new one. And then I hated that one and I created a new one. And that took maybe a week of just writing like, what do I want the chapters of this book to be? So
Yeah.
when I got to a certain point, maybe version 5, 6, or 7 of that outline, I was like, oh, that sounds good. So I'm going to write for that one now. And then I start writing and feeding in the notes that I had into each chapter to make sure that I check all the boxes of what I wanted to talk. And that's why maybe writing was so fast for me because
Yeah.
I had a lot of pre-work already
Yeah.
done.
No, thank you. That's really seems like a nice structured process, which I suppose you could almost use your PRFAQ by chapter if you really wanted to, right? Say, okay, well, what is the goal of this chapter?
Yes,
Maybe.
and yeah, but interesting enough, on the book, I explain how I did this because I thought that would be useful for people writing a PRFAQ. How do you do your research before you even start writing?
Yeah.
Like how you collect notes and then organize them in themes, and then you start writing your PRFAQ. Because
Yeah.
if you do that, writing your PRFAQ is going to be less than a day,
Yeah.
right? If you did enough of that. If you start your PRFAQ without any research, you're going to write 2 sentences and then you're going to have to stop and go do some research and
Right.
then come back and write and do some research. And that's much slower than if you do some investigation ahead of time.
Yeah. Got it. No, that makes complete sense. So, I know we're kind of running out of time, but I'd love to, is there one or two key points about the PRFAQ framework that you'd like to leave the audience with, like, hey, if you didn't get anything else, these things are the most important things to walk away from.
I would say start with a PRFAQ on a small project to get a taste for
Mm.
the framework. And it will take maybe 2, 3, or 4 tries on different projects for you to really grasp the power that it can deliver for your business and for yourself, right? And once you get there, you're never going to go back because it's so powerful way of thinking and articulating idea and inspire people to act.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's great. So you have the book, the PR FAQ framework. You also have a website. I think it's www.theprfaq.com. Is that right?
That's right. Yes. And I have a lot of resources on the website. I always tell people start by downloading the example PRFAQs that I have there. So you can get a sense of what this looks like. And then download the other resources, read the articles that I wrote, buy the book, but start from the examples.
And you have a newsletter, so you provide some really great context and content on, well, more than just PRFAQ, but certainly how to use it and leverage it. And I think you can get links to your book on your website.
Yes, correct. The website is going to help you get the book whatever country you live in.
Okay. Well, uh, it, Marcelo, this has been just an incredible conversation. The PRFAQ framework is a powerful tool that leaders and our listeners can use to drive innovation, gain clarity, and get real buy-in from for their ideas, whether it's their own, their one-person shop or running a large organization. So. Thank you so much for joining us today and sharing about your journey and your framework.
Thank you for having me, Jeff. This was a lot of fun.
All right. Well, so for listeners, if you took one thing away from today's episode, let it be this: great ideas don't fail because they're bad. It's because they're not clearly articulated. So we've learned that writing forces us to think and challenge assumptions and align ourselves And so that as we go to invest our time wisely into the future, we know we're working on things that really matter. So as always, if you've enjoyed the episode, please share, like, and leave a review. Don't forget to subscribe and don't miss us on the next episode. So until next time, keep leading, keep learning, and keep putting the pieces together.